Welcome to the Issues of Sports. I am your host, Evan Makovsky, and you are listening to the Believe Network. It's always a privilege to have the Issues of Sports on the Believe Network. We are going to have Brad Gilbert, the former coach and current ESPN tennis analyst, coming up shortly, just around the corner. And Brad is going to discuss this ongoing situation with Wimbledon as we are playing in the French Open quarterfinals, making it to the semifinals and on to the finals. And every player is allowed to play, but that is not going to be the case at the next Grand Slam in Wimbledon in England, as Russian and Belarusian players are banned from participating. This was a move by the All England Club. Many people thought that pressure was put on the All England Club by the British government. Whether or not that's true or not, I disagree with the decision. The ATP has pushed back, trying to strip Wimbledon of rankings points, so not making it as valuable a tournament, to my understanding, as it is. Many people consider it to be the most valuable tournament. Many think it's the US Open, but many, because of the prestige and the grass and just tradition, feel that Wimbledon is the most prestigious of all four Grand Slam tournaments. So we're going to have Brad Gilbert on to discuss the ban, the pushback, how, in my book, these players didn't do anything just because they were born in Russia. Some of them, on the last podcast with John Wertheim of 60 Minutes and Sports Illustrated, they haven't lived in Russia for years. How are they responsible for the actions of Vladimir Putin? Why are these Russian and Belarusian players not going to be allowed to play Wimbledon? So Brad is going to talk about that. He's going to talk about some of the players to watch. What about Serena and Federer? When are they going to wave bye-bye? A lot to discuss. That is all coming up next on the Issues of Sports. I'm Evan Makovsky. Brad Gilbert next. You're listening to the Believe Network. Welcome back to the Issues of Sports. It is my pleasure to welcome to the program former professional tennis player and current ESPN tennis analyst, Brad Gilbert. Brad, it's a pleasure to have you on. Let's get right into it and start with the controversy involving Wimbledon. And Wimbledon 6-8 weeks ago announced that Russian and Belarusian players could not participate, and the ATP is pushed back. They've been stripped of rankings points. A lot of people don't understand the whole rankings point system. Maybe you can just, in layman's terms, as best you can, explain what's going on with Wimbledon, with the ban and the pushback.
Well, Wimbledon is obviously the first tournament that has decided to ban Russian and Belarusian players. No other tournament going on has done this. But we've seen it, in Olympics now, where the Russians can't represent Russia, or now the World Cup they can't represent. But this is the first event where they've not allowing individuals who have qualified to play. The points are the winner of the four Grand Slams get 2,000 points, which goes to your 52 ranking. So there will be no ranking points. But obviously, Wimbledon, it will not be like an exhibition. It will still have the massive significance. But honestly, you wished something could have been worked out. Something somehow could have been, avoided in this situation. But they decided to take a stand. And then the tournament will go on, and it will go on without the Russian and Belarusian players. But honestly, you wish something could have been worked out.
When you say you wish something could have been worked out, what could be worked out except not banning them?
Well, how about Rublev, who's ranked 7 in the world, said that he would play for nothing and donate all of his money to charity.
I'm against the ban personally. I think it's unfair. I think that you're taking players, and some of them don't even live in Russia anymore, and you're penalizing them basically for being born somewhere. They're not involved in the government's decision. And then there's another aspect to it that I read in a New York Times opinion column is what Wimbledon is doing, does that make Vladimir Putin reconsider invading Ukraine or coming to a peace accord in any way? And it seems like the answer there, I know that he values sports. I don't know what his relationship is with tennis, but the answer there is no. So really, and some Russian players have come out against the war on the tour. So what are you really accomplishing? What is Wimbledon accomplishing?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just a sad situation. And, some of the players are probably fearful of speaking out because of, if you speak out, you don't know what could happen to you.
That's absolutely true, but it also sets a precedent here where I guess it's a private organization or whatever. But when the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2004, Americans weren't banned from Grand Slams. I'm not trying to get into a political discussion here, but I would assume this precedent continues where if this war goes on for 2-3 years, who knows what the future holds, that Wimbledon is going to hold this line.
Well, I mean, the U.S. Open, the Aussie Open, and French Open are federations and the clubs, so they can make some of their own rules. It's not a federation that runs it; it's a private club, so they can, make some decisions that others couldn't. You will help. I mean, you would hope that if this does drag on for a significant amount of time, there's something that can be figured out. And I'd like to think of the players, aren't the ones making decisions, but it's just, it'll be interesting when I get there to see how, it plays out more about this. But like I said, you just wished something could have been worked out to avoided this, but it's not my, that's their decision.
The WTA, staying with countries here, and if you want to call it politics, canceled all events in China due to the Peng Shuai situation. The ATP is going. Should they be going to China? Now tennis is really, I guess, getting involved in world politics. Where do you come down on this?
I mean, obviously, it was a huge decision for the women's because they have much more business in China than the men's do. Men's have far less tournaments, but it's one of those decisions you wished if it was happening that they would have done it together. So, surprised that they're not doing it together. Obviously, the WTA said, boom, until we have more concrete evidence, there's no tennis there. And I was surprised that the ATP decided to go in a different route.
Do you think it's a good thing, or it just is what it is? That because obviously it's an international sport where tournaments are held on every continent across the globe, aside from Antarctica. But do you think it's a good thing that tennis is so now tied up into world issues and politics?
I mean, anytime that you have a global sport and you're going to have these things come up, there's no doubt. I mean, obviously, it's a very sad situation that is happening with Peng Shuai. And the same thing, like I said about the Russian players, the Chinese players, who I'm sure, would love to voice their opinion because there's lots of playing on the tour, especially on the female side, but surely they're not allowed to. So it's a complex situation. There's no doubt. But like I said, you would have liked to see the ATP and WTA stand on the same ground on this issue.
Talking with Brad Gilbert, we're talking everything from Wimbledon to China to how about tiebreakers. The French Open instituted a tiebreaker, and so now all four majors have tiebreakers. Your thoughts on having tiebreakers across the board? Are you in favor of them? Does it, save players' health? Obviously, if they have to, keep on playing. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel like the U.S. Open got it right a long time ago, being the first, I don't know, 50 something years ago. And it was great that Wimbledon finally, did it. Aussie Open did it a few years ago. They were the second to do it. And I actually like what they do best by going to a 10-point tiebreaker in the third and the fifth set, or the third set in women's, which now they're doing at the French Open this year for the first time. They were the last to do it. And now Wimbledon went for a few years to a 12-all tiebreaker. Now they're going to a third set breaker. So, I mean, third sets and fifth sets. So I think it's great. I love the greatness of a fifth set, but okay, we're getting on the fifth. All four tournaments are playing a tiebreaker in the fifth or a tiebreaker in the third. Massive props to them for finally getting that done and all being on the same page.
What was your take, and this is going back, but to Novak Djokovic not being allowed due to his vaccination status in playing the Australian Open, which was another huge controversy just earlier in the year. And then, obviously Nadal won the tournament, but maybe they're all up there neck and neck, but maybe by not doing that, he forsook a Grand Slam.
Well, once again, this is a tough political situation. He rolled the dice knowing that, it was a complex situation. I'm sure that they told him that, like, okay, it's not a slam dunk you're going to be able to get in the country, because having COVID wasn't an excuse to get, an exemption to get into the country. Unfortunately, the tournament had told him they thought it was okay. He had gotten an exemption from the tournament, which a couple others, like a coach and maybe one other player, had gotten this exemption. There was a religious exemption. Maybe there were some complex medical exemptions to get into the country on that. But he got in on saying he had COVID in a short period of time, which gave him an exemption. But then once they found out, the government, there was also local government, state government, national government. So there, lots of different layers like we have in the States. And then all of a sudden, a couple different entities got wind of it. It's like, no, that's not a reason that you can be coming into the country. Like right now, I believe that you cannot come, same thing. You can't get an exemption coming in the United States for saying you've had COVID if you haven't been vaccinated. So these are complex situations that are, supersede tennis rules. And this is all of these things, are moving, fluid situations. Maybe the rules change, maybe the vaccine, subsides, but the rules are changing, and it's still going on after 2.5 years.
How do you rank the three of them? And I know Federer looks like he's maybe done winning majors, and I'll ask you about him in a moment, but tomorrow, Djokovic plays Nadal in the French Open. How do you see those three players as all-time greats?
I mean, obviously, they're three amazing players that have lifted each other to incredible heights. And at the moment, Rafa has a slight lead on Joker. And if Joker were to win this title and tie Rafa at 21, his resume is outrageous. He would be the only male player in the history of tennis to have won all four of the majors 3 times, and he's the only male player to have won every one of the Master Series titles once. Not only has he done it once, he's done it twice. But then some people still say, okay, until he takes the lead at 22, that it would be tied. and majors and year-end, number ones, year-end championships. There's a lot of different things in there head-to-head. But, Joker, obviously, we don't even know if he can get into the States, this summer to play the Open because of his vaccine stance. But I still think that he's probably got 3 to 4 more good years. So who knows? And who knows, how many more Rafa can win. Nobody thought he would win Australia. And Roger's going to be 41, in August, has not played since Wimbledon last year. So it's extremely unlikely that he will be adding to his tally. But all three of them, outrageously great careers, and all playing at the same time. Tennis has been a million times better for seeing it.
Can you, for example, I think Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer ever, whether he passes Jack Nicklaus or not, whether he's more than 2 or 3 majors behind him, I don't think it matters. Can you look at maybe someone like Federer? I don't know the exact years, but maybe from 04, 05 to maybe 2013. And I know that Nadal has had absurd dominance on clay at the French Open. But that said, can you look at someone like Federer and say, in that compressed period of time, he was the greatest player I've ever seen?
No, I don't. I mean, Joker's compressed period from 11 to, this time, or Rafa. I mean, I mean, all three of their bodies of work are outrageous. You said you don't put Tiger Woods over Nicklaus.
No, I do. I do put.
No, I'm saying you do. But all three of these guys smashed Pete Sampras's record. It's like, so who he eclipsed Roy Emerson. But also, too, remember, Lever, Rosewall, lots of guys would have had way more majors, but that when they turned pro, they didn't get to play forever. But in the Open era, these three guys have been by far the best 3 players of all time. It's not even, second to none. And to say they all happen at the same time is outrageous. But I just feel like, okay, just give it a few more years. We'll know concretely where we are. And who knows, if so a kid like Alcaraz now will jump in the fray in 10 years, and we'll be saying that's the beauty of sports. You just, it's like a moving escalator, and, some records, will never be touched, but even some records you think that can never be touched do get touched.
Can you see, you mentioned Alcaraz, who plays Zverev tomorrow in the another quarterfinal in the French Open. Do you see, I heard Rafael Nadal, his comments about he can be as great as ever. Do you see that kind of potential in Alcaraz?
I'll just say this. I mean, it's early on,
yeah,
but I mean, the guy's got unbelievable talent and game. So where he goes with that, you got to have good health, all sorts of things, but he's on a great path at the moment. He's 19 years old, and he's on an amazing path.
Zverev is playing. Go ahead.
Like an amazing trajectory, path, all that. But you still, it's like one of those things. Let's check back in 2027 and see where he's at. But if you told me by 2025, which is 3 years from now, and he's only 22 years old and he has 5 major titles already, I would not be surprised.
More and more players, there's trash talking on the court, but more and more players are throwing rackets. What do you see, which is kind of dangerous, but at the same time, you played the sport, and I'm sure you've thrown a racket or two or played against people who have thrown a racket or two. Where do you come down on throwing rackets, and how should it be legislated against?
Well, first of all, there's almost zero trash talking in tennis. It's not like basketball or football.
Well, you're not up close. You're not nose to nose with players, correct? I understand.
No, but there's like I said, next to zero trash talking on the court. Like I said, it's different. Maybe there's a little bit of agitation, but very rarely confrontation. If you saw it on Twitter, Andy Roddick did a great tutorial on how to throw your racket or how to hit a ball out of the stadium. This year, it's been ridiculous. Zverev should have been suspended. That was appalling what he did. Just here early in the tournament, Rublev smacked a ball, hit a ball kid underneath the chin. Umpire thought that should have been an instant default. Begu threw a racket, bounced in the stands, should have been an instant default. Those are all rules that everybody knows. You're allowed to throw your racket, just don't have it bounce. Make sure you know what you're doing. So I advise the players, once again, watch the tutorial of Roddick. He shows you how to do it. And I give red cards to the umpires for, not, applying the rules. Like, I know it ends a match. It's not like, it could be, but players know better. Rublev should have known better. He smashed the ball. He didn't mean to hit somebody, but what he did was 5 times worse than what Djokovic did in the Open, and he wasn't defaulted. Same thing what Begu did. Those are worse, much worse than what Djokovic did at the Open. He flicked the ball. He happened to make contact with the linesperson, and then he was defaulted. But Jensen Brooksby did the same thing in Miami. Threw his racket, it bounced, hit the ball kit. Should have been an instant default. It hasn't. So this year, for some reason, the officiating has swallowed the whistle. It's very surprising.
So we talked about Roger Federer. So you mentioned he'll be 41. And then, of course, there is Serena Williams. How long do you see either of them playing tennis?
Well, let's start with Federer, and let's hope at 41 years old in August that he's able to go out on his own terms. He's coming off of 3 knee surgeries, and I think almost 5 in total since 2000 and the end of 2016. So you hope that he can play a few events or he can just play something. But I don't think that you will see him play if he's nowhere near healthy. I don't think he wants to be out there limping around just to say goodbye. I think it's a lot more about, I think that if he feels like he can be healthy and competitive, you'll see him. And like I said, that's what you root for. You hope that he can go out on his own terms. And the same thing for Serena, who's missed now almost a year. But I think if she could get healthy, I think she potentially could still make a run, to winning a major. I know one thing, never underestimate a Williams because their longevity has been incredible. But same thing, like I said about Fed, you just hope that she can go out on her own terms, being healthy.
Do you believe that Serena, we talked about the men's side, who the greatest player of all time is? Is it a case closed? Serena Williams is the greatest women's player of all time, or you don't see it that way?
Saying close. It's Serena 1 and Steffi Graf 2. I don't give Margaret Court the all-time Grand Slam leader at 24 because she has 11 Australian Opens. A lot of them are before pro tennis. And there was numerous ones where she won the Aussie Open, in the 60s, where they were 32 and 48 draws. And literally there was only 4 or 5 foreigners that came over and played. So I don't really count those. So I go by Open era stats, and it's not even close. It's it would go Serena, Steffi, Martina, Chrissy. Bang. I don't even have Margaret Court in the top 4.
And maybe if she wasn't stabbed, Monica Seles could have been in that group, but that was...
She would be 5.
Yeah, that ruined her career. She was never the same. That
was
great tragedy.
Yeah.
It was a terrible moment.
Yeah. Those are the top 5, so I wouldn't even have Margaret Court in the top 5.
All right.
Because I go by the Open era. And like I said, I went back and looked at a lot of those draws that she won. It really wasn't the same tournament then.
Last couple here. What about sets? Should it be best of 3 until the quarterfinals so the players are fresh and not injured? Should women play best of 5? How do you come down on, are you fine with how
Well,
things
yellow
are?
card for you. Yellow card for you for even asking that question. Best of 5 forever in every round. Then you change history. So would never want that. And best of 5 for women is, listen, they've always played best of 3, and that's their decision. That's, if they want to go to best of 5 at some point, that's their decision. So it's not that's not a decision for me to make or speculate about. I mean, they're both great at what they do, but I am massively adamant that the men continue to play best of 5 in every round forever. Otherwise, you change history. And the women have always played best of 3. There's only been one tournament ever they played a best of 5 in the final in the WTA championships for a few years. But if they want to implement that in the quarter semis or finals or just finals, that's their decision.
Well, it's a different level of conditioning, I would think, playing a 4th and 5th set where you have to.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to say they can or can't do it, but that's not a decision for me to make, because I'm not on their board. I'm not one of their players. I'm not, it's like one of those things that people just flippantly say, oh, you should do this or do that. But I'm not part, if they did it, I would say great. If they don't do it, no. I mean, it's like I have no opinion on it, but I have an opinion about men should continue in slams to play best of 5 sets. Now it's easier because you don't have to play past 6 all in the 5th.
How can tennis be more affordable and attract more children to play?
Well, during the pandemic, I guess the tennis numbers are at the highest level they've been for the longest time. But I think that if we can continue to integrate tennis into schools, I think it would help a lot. Getting it, you have high school tennis, but it would be great at some point if we could get, more tennis into, schools, middle schools, grammar schools, and I wish I had the answers for you on that, but I don't.
Well, you're a great commentator and analyst on ESPN, a sharp guy. Would Brad Gilbert, though, ever go back into coaching?
Would I ever go? Never say never.
Okay, that's a fair answer. On that note, we'll wrap things up. I really appreciate your time and your insights on all these issues around the sport of tennis.
Okay, have a good afternoon.
All right, we will take a break right here. Thanks to Brad Gilbert. I'm Evan Makovsky, and you're listening to the Issues of Sports on the Believe Network. Thanks a lot to Brad Gilbert. He certainly is sharp, no doubt about it. He weighs in. ESPN is lucky to have him. And he said never say never to being a coach again, so he still may have something to give. His passion for tennis is certainly as great as it's ever been. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Thanks to Brad Gilbert. I'm Evan Makovsky. You're listening to the Issues of Sports on the Believe Network, and we'll see you on the next episode. And tell your friends to follow and subscribe. Follow and subscribe. See you next time.